Hi, everybody. Again, Robin Honsberger here with Honsberger Physio Plus and Ali Glover. Tonight is all about golf. Tonight, we are going to talk about Pilates for golf. Golf is back and people are so excited, but we are seeing a lot of golf-related injuries occurring after such a long period of inactivity. Injury prevention is an important element of participating in any sport or activity for developing strong, resilient, and a healthy body long term. For those of you who've never participated in Pilates, Pilates is an exercise-based program that can not only improve your golf game by increasing your strength, your flexibility, but also help keep you free of injury. So when we talk about golf specific areas or areas that Pilates can help you, it's about the core and the low back and the pelvis to allow a firm base for your swing. Thoracic mobility is crucial in the mid and upper back, allowing for a rotation for your swing through, and then shoulder mobility as well as stability for control of your golf swing. So without further ado, the woman of the hour, Ali Glover, she has been using Pilates with her physiotherapy skills with elite athletes for over 20 years to help prevent injury and improve performance. Honestly, Ali's resume speaks for herself. She's participated in numerous Paralympic Games as a physiotherapist, as well as Olympic Games. She has achieved the gold standard for the Association of Chartered Physiotherapists in Sports Medicine in the UK. She's worked owning her own clinic. She's worked in Australia. She's worked with the National Health Service, the Royal Air Force. Her resume proves itself. She has a wealth of international sport experience, as I was mentioning, and has worked with the Great Britain team in Athens, in Turin, in Beijing, in London, and in Rio. She's been to a number of Commonwealth Games as well. So she's really pairing her high-end sport experience with physiotherapy to help people prevent injury and perform better, regardless of the sport they do, regardless of their job, if this is for a professional athlete or a weekend warrior. So we really do have a subject matter expert with us in the midst, in real life, in person. So without further ado, Ali, I'm going to pass things over to you and dive right into golf-specific Pilates.
Okay. Well, thank you for that introduction, Robin. So as Robin has already said, I've worked with lots of different sports, and although golf maybe isn't one of my sports that I've worked with in terms of like the high level, every sport is the same to me in terms of if I understand the movement patterns, I can translate that into what I'm doing with the Pilates and rehabilitation. So some of the key areas that I'm going to look at tonight in terms of golf is you need to have a good core and hip control to be able to get your rotation and your movement for your golf swing, and obviously that thoracic mobility, so your upper back mobility. So not knowing any of you, you can try the exercises. If you've got any questions, then I'm happy to sort of chat and change as we go along. But I'm going to give you just a little bit of a taster to see, is this something that you want to try yourself, progress a little bit more so that you've got a few things to do. Some of the exercises you could do as a warm-up before you go out and play golf, or you could do it just as a standalone to improve your strength and mobility. So I'm going to move the screen now so that you can see me on the floor. And I do have a golf club that I'm going to use to show you to do a few things. Down on the floor, and we're going to think about our pelvis. We're going to think about our thoracic spine, where we want the rotation and some of that shoulder control. So I'm going to go through some of the basics before I then add a little bit more specific in terms of what applies to golf. So when we think about Pilates, we think about this pelvic triangle here. And so I'm just going to gently
rock that back and forward. So just having this stripe here just probably allows you a little bit to see what's happening at my pelvis. So I'm rocking it back and forwards. So I'm going to find that position where the pelvis is a triangle that's parallel with the floor and the ceiling. And that's what's called our neutral spine position. So in that position now, I'm going to think about tightening my core. So the pelvic bones here, if you put your fingers just inside of here, and even if you just try a little cough, so if you'll actually feel them tighten underneath your fingers. You're just going to gently think about trying to pull those muscles, tighten them, pull them to the back of the mat, and then releasing off. And you just feel them tightening the broad band across here. And that's those core muscles that are going to cause that stabilization, which is a good base for everything that works around. So we're gently going to tighten and then release. And gently tighten and then release. And now I'm going to get you to think about tightening those muscles, but keeping them tight while you move that pelvis. So you're gently going to tighten, and now you're going to flatten that pelvis down so you can see where I'm tilting it here, but keeping tight and then coming back to that neutral spine start. So abdominals are tight. I'm just going to flatten that back down and then come back to the neutral spine. So you keep your abdominals tight all the time. So what's a common thing for people to do? They tighten, they can go into that pelvic tilt, but then they can't control it back to that starting position. So this is really sort of starting on basic core, controlling back into that imprint and back to neutral. So now I'm going to think about how's that engaged with this rib cage and mid back. So we're going to tighten, imprint, and so we're going to bring those arms up over the head and come back down. So what you're wanting to think about in your golf is that you've got a good stable base to have your swing through. So abdominals tight, imprint, breathe in as you bring those arms up and breathe out as you come back down. Now, an option with one of your clubs is to think about what's happening at the shoulder. So you're thinking about squeezing those shoulder blades together, abdominals tight, imprint, and you just bring those arms up over your head and then control it back down. So you're keeping those shoulder blades squeezed together and controlling up. So you'll see that my trunk's not moving, and then controlling down. Abs tight, just loosening off those shoulder joints and then control that back down. Do one more and come back down. So I'm going to keep this now, and I'm going to hold the golf club into my thighs. And I'm going to do a bridge position. So again, we're thinking about that core, but I'm thinking about this shoulder control. So if you haven't got the club, because I didn't suggest that, so you tighten and you're going to control and keep your arms down and then come back through in that bridge position. I'm going to show you how we'll do that with the golf club. I'm just going to give a little bit of pressure. So it's stabilizing these shoulders here. So abdominals tight. So lots of stabilization for shoulders is good for rotator cuff. So coming up into that bridge position, trunk and body are in alignment, and then controlling it back down. So abdominals tight. Control up into that bridge position, holding it there. Controlling it back down. So abdominals tight, controlling up into bridge, about keeping those arms pushing down on that club, and then coming back down. So to add in a bit of upper back shoulder mobility through on this one, you can go abdominals tight, come up into a bridge position, Controlling those arms up over, and you leave the arms there, and then you'll feel that stretch through that mid back. You come back down and thinking about bringing the club back down. So abdominals tight, controlling up into that bridge position. You can see how I'm in the line here. Lifting arms up over your head, rolling through that mid back, and then bring those arms back down. We'll do one more of those. Abdominals tight, controlling up, bring that arm up over your head, and then roll and loosen off that mid back and come back down. All right, you're going to think about a little bit of hip mobility, because your hip control and mobility through that swing is really important. We're going to tighten abdominals, and if you can, you're going to bring your legs up into this tabletop position. I'm just going to adjust that because you're not seeing
Now, this too, for everybody on the line, these types of exercises will really help with hip disassociation, and that bring it through that backswing and really getting those hips up and through. So these are perfect exercises for hip disassociation type of stuff.
Bring them up to tabletop. Now, the thing about this position is you need to be able to keep your back in contact. What you don't want to happen is an arch and start being able to get your hand underneath there. So you want to think about keeping that core tight and that back flat. And then we can alternate, taking one leg down and back, and then the other leg down. So we're controlling, working through that hip, loosening off that hip. And then we can also bring in some shoulder control through that. Breathing in and out. Opposite arm to opposite leg. We're really thinking about keeping tight through that core, thinking about squeezing those shoulder blades together. And opposite arm, opposite leg. So we're going to do 2 more of these. Making sure that back's still flat into the mat. And then we're going to bring those legs back down. Okay, we're going to combine a little bit of rotation through the hips and rotation at the upper body. So we're going to start initially with just working through the hips. So abdominals are tight, and we're taking these legs back up into this tabletop position. So it's really important that you keep control through this low back and abdominals tight, so you're not putting any stress through that area. And then we're going to control, gently roll hips one way, back to the other, middle and over to the other side. So you're controlling all that movement from that hip. So the upper body at the moment is staying up on the mat. Okay, so this is keeping quite still. Controlling from side to side, thinking about trying to keep that 99 position on either side. Okay, 2 more each way. Controlling through. You think about your swing where you rotate through, you've got to have that movement to be able to do that. And then bring back to the middle. All right, so now we're going to think about the upper body rotation, and then we'll combine them both together. So abdominals tight, and those shoulders are pointing up to the ceiling, and those hands are shoulder width apart. And then you're going to rotate through that upper back, into the middle, and then rotate the other way. So we're thinking about that rotation in that upper back. So I'm going to get my club and hold it there. So tightening and imprinting my back, and then rotating through and back to the middle. And rotating the other way. So think about keeping those shoulder blades together. And it's useful having the club because it means that my hands stay the same width all the time when I'm rotating through. I'm going to do one more each way. And then I'm going to combine legs and arms. Okay, so I'm going to combine those two exercises together. So abdominals tight, imprint, and we'll bring those legs up to tabletop and the arms up here. So we're going to go opposite ways. So controlling through and coming back. So we're getting that rotation through the hips and through the upper trunk, that thoracic spine.
Quick question for you. How far do you know to go? Is there a point where you should stop, or is it when a hip or a shoulder comes too far off the mat?
So the key thing is what's the control through here. So if you're finding holding in that position and you're struggling to hold that and you're really coming off and twisting, then you need to work just within the small range. So I can keep my back fairly well down here in terms, so the hips are in terms of the control. So I can keep my back fairly good. So you see that line there. If I'm starting to do that, I'm not controlling, and it's because I'm not working my core well enough. So it's quite hard to just hold those legs in that position. So if you're finding that that's hard, the way that you can start off is bring those feet down, and then you can just work within this range. So then it's not as key in terms of the smaller range. You can bring a bigger range through, and it's a bit more mobility. Whereas if we're doing it up in this tabletop position, we're working on mobility, but we're also working on that core. If that answers the question. And do one more each way. And then I'm going to bring those legs down. Okay, I'm going to go up into the kneeling position. I might have to adjust this a little bit again. All right, so we're coming up, sitting nice and tall, and having knee in alignment here with hip. Knee goes in a line with big toe. I'm going to do a little bit of core, thinking about coming up nice and tall, but working through those hip, mobilizing that hip up in a bit more of a functional position. So I'm going through and then coming back. So keeping up through that core and controlling through. Loosening those hip flexors here, keeping tight through there, and back. So I'm gonna do a little bit sideways on here, so you can see as well what I'm doing. So stretching a little bit through those hips, and core, keeping that trunk going. So all that movement here, coming through that hip, you can see that I'm trying to keep nice and tall through my trunk. And then I'm thinking about my shoulder control up here as well. All right, so I'm just going to change and do that on the other side.
So again, we're starting off sort of knees, hips at 90. We're thinking about keeping our core tight. And then I'm controlling through. You feel that stretch a little bit at the front. And then I'm controlling back a little bit. So the work's coming through this supporting leg. I'm really working that core. So what I'm not doing is allowing my body to come back and forward. So I'm thinking tucking in my core, working those glutes, and controlling back and forwards. You really control those glutes in your bum and those hips. In and breathe out. And the last one. All right. So we're going to finish off with a stretch through the mid back. So what we're going to do for this one is go on to, actually we're going to do 2 stretches for the mid back. This is one that I really like for golf. So we're going to do one on our side here. So knees are at 90 and arms out at 90 from the shoulder here. So abdominals are tight. You're going to breathe in and breathe out. So you're really going to open up that mid back. Breathe in and breathe out and tighten. Draw those shoulders down. Breathe in and breathe out. And then draw tight. So still working our core, but this is really good thinking about. So you're also thinking with this one, as you're opening up those shoulders, I really want you to think about squeezing those shoulder blades together. So that shoulder stability, controlling that. So you're opening up and squeezing those shoulder blades together. So your shoulders are not like that. They're really working and controlled in that position. All right, so we're just going to change on to the other side. So knees and hips are at 90 and arms out at 90. Abdominals are tight, lifting that arm up, rotating and opening up. Breathe in at the top and draw tight. Arms tight, so you're keeping that gap here on that shoulder. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. And one more. And draw tight. Okay. Another good one that I really like for mobilizing that upper back in terms of golf. So we go on to hands and knees. Knees are hip width apart and shoulders, hands are shoulder width apart. So first thing you're going to think about is like, can you tighten those abdominals in this position? So what's happening with your core here? So tightening and then releasing off. And tightening and releasing off. So you want to think about that back nice and flat in here. Thinking about those shoulder blades drawing together. So abdominals are tight. And then I'm going to open up that arm and come through and rotate. So abdominals are tight, lifting up, opening up, and then rotating through. So really good for that rotation that you need in that swing. So you don't have your upper body rotation. The place that you're going to likely to get injured is your low back. Somewhere's got to compensate and allow that movement. Breathe in and breathe out, rotate. And breathe in, open up, and you allow that
supporting arm to bend so that you can really get that rotation there. You can try that on the other side. So find that good position, abdominals tight, shoulders back, lift up that arm, open up through that chest, and then rotate through. So lots going on here, abdominals tight, working that shoulder stability and working that thoracic rotation. So I had a guy in today and he was doing this and he didn't realise how stiff he was through all of this for his golf. The abs tight, lift up, and then gently rotate through. Inhale up, and exhale, rotate through. All right, bring those hands back to that starting position, and we're just going to loosen off this whole of the spine to finish. We're going to do cat stretch, so abdominals tight, we're going to rotate that low back up to the neck, and then coming back down. So still working the core, still thinking about what's our shoulders position like, drawing up and back down. Abs tight, inhale up and exhale. And last one, think about breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth and easing off. Okay, so that's a little bit of a taster in terms of a few different exercises you can do. Lying down, sitting as warm up. Obviously, as I work with people, everyone's an individual, so it depends what I find to what programs I would give to them. But those are some of the basics that I would start with and then progress on.
So in terms of, we've got some pretty great golfers here on the call with us tonight. How do you determine where someone would need to start? So in their first visit with you, do you take them through a series of exercises to gauge their balance, their strength, and their ability? Let us know a little bit more about how you might craft a program based on someone's, I guess, medical history, restrictions, but also goals for golf.
Yeah, so some of the things I would look at is flexibility. So specifically for golf, I'm going to think about what's your hip mobility, what's your lumbar and thoracic mobility like, what's your shoulder stability like, what's your core like. So with most people, I would always start at that very basic lying down and thinking about what's your pelvic control like initially, and then I would add in some arm and leg movements in terms of core and control to then see a baseline, right, where I'm going to take someone with that. So I'll try a few exercises and see what the control, what the form is like, and taken into account in terms of injury and also their goals in terms of what they want to get out of it.
Perfect. Oh, that helps us a lot. Now, when we look at frequency and when people should be doing Pilates, is this something that people should be doing throughout the entire year? If we're playing a lot of golf right now, like let's say we're playing once or twice a week, how often should we be focusing on strength, core, balance, and flexibility?
So your ideal, I think, would be at least to do it 3 times a week, even if you're doing 15 to 20 minutes of work. So either doing it as part of a program or doing it sort of as a warm-up, maybe before you go out to play. In terms of working with Pilates classes and different clients that I've done over 20 years, I know that some people will do an hour's class with me once a week, and you will actually see improvements with that, and it maintains their core, it improves their balance and stuff. But my idea would be that people would do it 3 times a week in terms of gaining the things. And you know, if we're looking at golf being played in the summer, you want to do stuff before you get out and play. So in the months in the winter is the key time to build on everything that then translates more into the summer, because I suspect we're going to see a lot of injuries in the next few months with people having not been as active and not doing things.
No, that's great. I think that just gives people the idea of this can be done all year round. It can be periodized based on your goals for golf, but it also can be included regularly throughout the actual golf season. The nice thing about working with Allie is whether you're golfing here in the summer or you go off to Florida or another warm destination for the winter, Allie can be accessed virtually to make sure you continue on your regular plan. And that's what I think I love so much about, even though COVID has been terrible, it's really revitalized some of those virtual programs to make them more accessible for people all over the globe.
Yeah, definitely, because an example would be like Robin's talking about virtual, and I'd never ever done that before, and COVID forced me to do it. So having moved here 18 months ago from the UK, I had a lot of clients that I worked with Pilates wise, and they hadn't really done much since I left. And so I just set up a class with the UK to get us partly through lockdown and keep people mobile, but that's kept going because also it's convenient that they could log on at home, they could make sure they regularly did their core and Pilates. And then another example of that would be I'm currently working with the Canadian wheelchair basketballers. They prepare for Tokyo. So I specifically do their core and shoulder stability work. And that all started on Zoom because during lockdown, they were all over the country. So actually one player was in Germany playing the professional league there. Others were out in BC. So to try and keep some of their program going, I did Zoom Pilates and shoulder stability with them. And obviously now I go and deliver that face-to-face, that they're back in central training down at the Panam Centre. But it enables lots more different options nowadays.
That's fantastic. Now, what are the most common injuries that you do see when you're working with golfers?
I'd say I would see a lot of sort of low back, mid back problems, and then quite a bit that comes down to the stiffness in those areas, and people are not mobile enough, so they're trying to, as they're doing their swing, you know, they're stiff, so one area is compensating for the other. Also some of the sort of shoulder rotator cuff type problems, and some of that comes down to the sort of lack of shoulder stability. And so if your shoulder stability isn't good and your shoulder's sort of sitting particularly in a forward position, and nowadays we're seeing a lot more of that, particularly with people working at home and maybe not the greatest setup. So then if you're like this and then you start doing your golf swing, you're much more prone to getting sort of impingements, problems with your rotator cuff in there. And so then having that better control through there. So I'd say that's sort of three of the main key areas that I often see.
That's wonderful. If there's any other questions from the group, please feel free to ask those now if you'd like to unmute yourself or type it into the chat function. But I think Allie really covered some great topics today, talking about injury prevention for golf, common injuries for golf, but more importantly, how regular exercise and movement through Pilates can really help improve your overall golf game. All of us need our bodies for our jobs, for life, but also for recreation. So this is the perfect opportunity to be able to build strength, balance, flexibility, not only for your long-term health, but really impacting your overall sport. Allie practices in our Aurora office. She is available Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Obviously for regular traditional physio for anyone who has an injury or a specific goal they have in mind, but also for Pilates. She is STOT trained, which is a highly recognized faculty of instructors, really focusing on a very rigorous training protocol in order to learn what she has. So she's got lots of experience that way as well. And for all of those who attended this evening, we're going to be putting you in a draw to gift somebody one 30-minute Pilates session with Ali. So whether that's virtual or in person, it's completely up to you. But we will be sending that over tomorrow morning along with Ali's contact information. So if you have a question or you wanted to talk specifically about an injury, she's your go-to girl for sure. If you're not in Aurora, we also offer Pilates in Stouffville and Markham with a STOT trained instructor, also a physiotherapist named Nick. But Ali is able to do virtual as well as in person. So please keep that in mind. If you have any questions, she is a wealth of knowledge and happy to chat further and help you kind of decide what might be next. We wish you nothing but the best for this golf season, and we appreciate your time and attendance this evening, and we will talk to you all very soon. Thank you so much, Ali, for sharing your information and the time you spent showing those exercises. They're a lot harder to do than they seem. Unfortunately, I couldn't do all of them with my arm, but the last session we did Pilates for runners, I was sweating and I really needed to incorporate some of that into my training. So we appreciate your time, we appreciate your knowledge, and we hope you all have a great evening.
Thank you all.